Force Design 2030 update released in May emphasized that the Corps must continue to develop concepts for resilient logistics webs in a contested environment with multiple options for support to include distribution networks and multi-domain delivery methods. Marine Corps Systems Command's Logistics Combat Element Systems portfolio provides and sustains many of these capabilities for the Fleet Marine Force. LCES equips and sustains our Marines with engineering, supply, maintenance, ammunition, and tactical wheeled vehicle systems, and solutions to support various missions and enable lethality. These capabilities include everything from lightweight ammunition and medical refrigerators to tent systems and robot technologies. The portfolio includes a team of experienced Marines, sailors, and civilians who serve in a myriad roles from subject matter experts to engineers. Today I'm pleased to have the portfolio manager for LCES, Colonel John Gutierrez, on the podcast. Welcome, sir.
Hey,
Thanks for taking the time. I know we got a lot to talk about. You got a very large portfolio of diverse programs, but before we dive deep into them, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here on this acquisition team.
Sure. So how I began living the dream. Let's see. Well, I'm from the West. I'm from Arizona is what I say, typically. But my father was a mining engineer, and we moved around about every 18 to 24 months throughout the West, lived in every Western state except Oregon, usually in small mining or logging towns. So did that, bounced all over to include Alaska, and then spent most of my time in Arizona. Graduated high school there. Then out of high school, I joined the Naval Reserve. I was a Navy corpsman.
Okay.
Went to school for a while down in San Diego, then came back and finished up at Arizona State University. I was biology and chemistry major in college, minor in chem, major in biology. And then decided that, I was thinking going into medicine and that route. I really enjoyed working with the Marine Corps, so I decided to come in and went to OCS, and that's how it all began.
Oh, that's awesome. And here you are. But I'm sure you had no visions of going into acquisition when you joined the Marine Corps.
Not at all. So I didn't even know what that was. I came in, my first unit or my first tour as a supply officer. I was at 2nd Battalion, 10th Marines. Went out to dinner with a captain that I worked for and his buddy, and he was telling me about running around in former Russian republics with a bag of money as a contingency contracting officer. I was like, that sounds like James Bond stuff and awesome. How do I do that? And he goes, well, you go to this place called the Naval Postgraduate School and get a graduate degree, and then you can do this. And then so I did. I went out there and was a lieutenant when I got there and graduated in December of 2001 out of the contracting curriculum. And then my payback tour was at the 2nd Supply Battalion, 2nd Force Service Support Group.
Okay.
As the contingency contracting officer. So then
you were the guy with a big bag of money that had to go out and buy all the things they needed when they were down, right?
That's right. So got to go participate in Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 for the initial invasion. I got to go do some stuff in Afghanistan. Got to deploy down to Haiti as well. So got to spend a lot of deployed time. But what my takeaway from that was, I didn't even know what an acquisition guy was then, but
right.
It was, providing capabilities that were not readily available in the supply system. And so whether it was a supply or service, I was getting on the local economy. I really enjoyed that. I really liked having that impact to the operating forces. And I just thought it was, dynamic, a lot of fun, challenging, all those things.
So would you say a good foundation for what you eventually got into?
Oh, absolutely. I think the education you get from NPS in that particular curriculum, but then also those experiences as a contracting officer set the foundation. And you'll see a lot of 8061 acquisition officers who have that same background now. So
again, we're not actively recruiting, but since I have this moment in the spotlight, if there are any contracting officers out there listening, they need to pay attention. So
that's right.
But no, I appreciate that. So you were actually in one of the first classes of the acquisition officers that transitioned to become a professional MOS.
That's right.
So you've seen the field grow. How have things evolved and changed for you?
Sure.
in the last few years?
So I would say when I came in, it was still an uncharted path. Nobody really knew what a career path looked like or anything else. So it was uncharted territory. So I think over time, what I've seen being in this MOS since 2007 now is a professionalization of the MOS, I would say. And then not only within the acquisition community writ large, but also across the Fleet Marine Force and the other services. Now, when you hear the Commandant or the ACMAC or other senior leaders, there's no explaining about what an acquisition officer is or what value we provide. People know that now. Marines know that. So, yes.
But listen, I want to jump right in. Logistics is the heart of any Army or any operation that we do. So it's natural that it's also a critical component for Force Design 2030. Can you give us an overview of some of the things that your portfolio does or is in charge of? I know you have a very large amount of programs, so can you just give us the wave tops on?
Sure. So across our 5 program management offices, engineering, supply maintenance, ammunition, light, medium, heavy tactical vehicles, I would say I'm only going to hit the highlights. And this is not all inclusive because we have over 300 programs and initiatives, but I would say within program engineering systems, the Tactical Air Ground Refueling Station, TAGRs, that's a significant capability. That's going to provide a modular refueling capability to be able to provide rapid forward refueling for forward arming and refueling points or FARPs. So that's going to be a critical component for operating in EABO and other anticipated
dispersed environment.
Absolutely. I would say within the supply and maintenance piece, supply and maintenance systems program management office, the Expeditionary fluid analysis system, that's going to really revolutionize, I think, how we do a lot of maintenance across the Fleet Marine Force. That's going to really provide a tool where Marines and commanders can really perform predictive analysis there to say, okay, instead of bringing in your vehicle every 5,000 miles, let's say, now it's conditions based where they can look at the fluid and say, oh yeah, absolutely, this needs to be fixed, etc. And it can also warn of early part failures, etc. So that's something we're getting ready to field as well.
It's funny you say that because I think one of the things that technology has done, particularly to the main maintenance side of the house, a lot of these vehicles we get, they're smarter. They're going to be able to tell you, hey, driver, you need to slow down because, you're about to blow something or other. So you're finding that, the training piece to go with that on the maintenance side, how has that evolved? And I don't mean to digress a little bit, but I think it's important to understand that, a mechanic used to be able to take care of his vehicle, look at the manual, do all the things. Now, that vehicle comes in, you plug into a smart unit, and it tells you, here's all the things you need to pay attention to.
So, great question. I'm glad you asked that, actually. So, it kind of blends over into some of our tactical vehicle portfolio. So, look at the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, for example. That is not, your grandfather's Humvee, let's say.
Right.
That is a complex, integrated vehicle system, but it's also built on a network platform. So when you perform maintenance on that, we have the traditional technical manuals, et cetera, but also what we're seeing is, particularly with this newer generation of Marines and I should say soldiers, sailors, and airmen, because they're also using that same equipment, where these are, let's say available almost like on a YouTube where they can pull up a smartphone or something like that and look, okay, how do I do X, Y, and Z? And so we're looking at evolving those training standards, evolving some of those, particularly in the maintenance world, to be able to resonate more, I would say, with the user.
So getting back to your, and again, didn't mean to derail you, but as we chat here, I'm going to find opportunities to pick at things that might be of interest. So getting back to your portfolio. Sure.
So I'd say a program manager for ammunition, probably one of the big game changers here recently has been the lightweight 50 cal polymer ammunition round. Okay, so they've gone through a couple of limited user evaluations with that at the machine gunner courses. I think at both 1 and 2MEF received glowing reviews from the gunners as well as the Marines on the ground. But the significant piece to that is really no change in performance, but a 20% weight savings. And so, significant if you're, kind of in a rucksack and you're, packing that thing, but also being able to save in transportation costs. Think about fuel,
absolutely.
think about fuel, et cetera, on an aircraft. And then also, as we look into future concepts, that's going to enable potentially, aerial resupply via unmanned aerial systems and things of that nature. So just, that's just at the, tip of the iceberg, I think, what we're seeing. Also, some exciting things we're doing within our 2 tactical wheeled vehicle portfolios. So within PM light tactical vehicles, I would say the ultralight tactical vehicle is going to be replacing the utility task vehicle right now in the fleet. The Fleet Marine Force right now is screaming for these things. They're the it's like first time ice cream came out or something like that. Everybody loves it, and everybody wants more. And so a significant game changer. It's internally transportable to the MB-22, 1,800 pounds of payload. And so, as we look at integrating systems on it, whether it be a LMATIS or other systems, this thing is, or tactical air ground refueling station taggers. There's a lot of capability, and although we haven't fielded it yet, and we're getting ready, we're still in testing, et cetera, and we're working with Special Operations Command on this platform.
Yeah,
it has a lot of capabilities.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's not something that you went down the road uniquely on yourself. So
no,
I think it's a great case in point where another entity saw the usefulness of this, and you joined forces to.
Absolutely, and we try to do that as much as we can. It's the best way to spend money is using other people's money as much as we can. And then, so I would say, finally, in the medium and heavy tactical portfolio, one of the technology initiatives that they're really getting after, we're excited about, is the anti-idle prototype initiative with the LVSR.
Okay.
And so that also is a game changer. It can it's going to save. Well, currently the LVSR idles about 43% of the time. Mm-hmm. So think about this technology much like your brand new vehicle that you would have. Right. Start, stop, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So significant fuel savings, and then all those things that would support all those secondary and tertiary benefits that would enable and support the Department of the Navy's climate strategy coming out. So with reduced fuel consumption, greenhouse gases, wear on engine components, etc. So,
and again, both the MTVR, LVSR, 2 workhorses that have been doing wonders for the Marine Corps for years, and they have years left of their life into the future. So anything we can do to maximize their efficiency and maybe perhaps minimize the carbon footprint, as they say. So
absolutely, and maybe we'll talk about it a little later, but we do have an initiative right now that's going to be replacing a portion of the MTBR on the medium tactical truck. And so one of the technologies actually that we're seeking as a portion of that is hybrid electric technologies, integrating that into that.
Well, we don't have to wait for later. We can talk about it now. I mean, you just talked about your vehicle fleet. So can you touch on that a little bit and tell us where you think you might be going with hybrid electric or, optional different types of energies?
Of course, sure. So what I would say is this touches multiple components across the LCES portfolio.
Okay.
But more importantly, it's a significant enabling function to, anything that wants to integrate on the system that is powered. And so, there's a real move across the Department of Defense, I would say, and the Marine Corps, Department of the Navy, to look at, whether it's electrification of tactical wheeled vehicles,
right?
Whether it's hybridization or a mix of the two. So we're just now starting to look at, experimentation at that, and I know McWill has some activities going on that might be integrated into IBX or even the MLR, experiments later on. But we are very much, monitoring the marketplace, seeing what industry's doing, as far as the technologies and battery technologies are changing. So the services are looking at that right now. Unfortunately, right now as technologies are today, I would say a part of our constraints are the weight, the cube of those lithium-ion batteries, and then not only that, but the stability of those lithium-ion batteries, particularly as you want to transport them on naval vessels or aircraft. And
the other thing too is that the infrastructure, industry is investing a lot more, government's investing a lot more in the infrastructure when it comes to commercial electrification of vehicles. So I'm assuming some of that may help inform and influence the path forward as we try to do, hybrid type of operations in remote locations.
Absolutely.
Without an infrastructure to pull from. So
absolutely. And I think those would be lessons learned that we could, gain from experiments, in a controlled environment and let Marines use this gear and commanders use this gear and get messy with it and learn hard lessons that we can apply.
Well, it sounds like it's an exciting time to be at LCES, especially if you're playing around with vehicles and hybrid type stuff.
I'll tell you, I think every day is an exciting day to be at LCES. I think we have probably the best mission here within the command.
So I'm glad you said that, because I got to ask you. So it's easy to understand we have PMs throughout, but you're the portfolio manager. What's your main mission, your main role as a portfolio manager? So you obviously have all these PMs that oversee 300 plus programs.
Sure. So I'd say I do basically two things, right? So I lead people and I manage things. Okay. And so that's an encompassing thing. So let's talk about leading people. Okay. Right. So right now within LCES, our organization is right around 450 Marines, sailors, government, civilians, and contractors. Okay. And, we're in 10 different states, 2 different locations in Japan. So all of the personnel piece of that, that consumes a lot. And whether it be fitness reports and administrative matters or, counselings or, awesome stuff like PMEs and getting out and doing those things or just going out and engaging with our teams, et cetera, and then mentoring all of those things. And then the management, I would say, of things. So managing our budget. We have an operating budget of just over $1 billion a year. We have over 300 programs and initiatives ranging from a joint ACAT 1C JL, the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle Program, all the way down to abbreviated acquisition programs, for example, PM Engineering Systems and their explosive hazard defeat system, their sickle stick, let's say, which is just kind of looks like a scythe or something. So, so it runs the gamut, really. Yeah. And so, what I say that, I bring that up is because I might have a meeting about electrification and doing that. And then I shift gears and I spend some time with our Expeditionary Medical Systems team, who we have a Navy commander who's a pharmacist on that team, by the way. And I'm talking about, things going back to my roots as a corpsman, and equipping our doctors, nurses, and corpsmen ashore who are, treating Marines, to shifting gears and going into additive manufacturing and 3D printing, and then shifting gears again and going into explosive hazard defeat. So what I would say is no day is exactly the same, and it's dynamic, and it's fun, it's challenging, all those things.
So I was going to ask you what's a typical day or week look like, but I think we've already covered that, so I'll just go beyond that. So any given day, Colonel John Gutierrez may not know what hat he's going to have to put on that afternoon. So you start with 1 in the morning, but you may be wearing something different in the afternoon. I think it's fascinating that I didn't realize we had folks over in 10 different states. And so speaking of that, you spent some time in Detroit, correct?
I did, yes. Right. I did it.
We do a lot with our partners and whatnot, so you have a little bit of a background in dealing with particularly the Army and vehicle programs. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So my relationship with the Army is actually goes further back. So I served 2 times as a product manager. Both times were within PEO, CS, and CSS. I served as a product manager at Fort Belvoir with the DoD project manager for mobile electric power. And so got to work with, the PEO up in Michigan and all of that, and got to deploy a couple times to Afghanistan with them. So that was, began those relationships. Right. And then a second time as a product manager, I went to Detroit, worked as a joint product manager for vehicle systems at the Joint Program Office for Joint Light Tactical Vehicles, and spent 3 years in that program. So I probably know as many Army officers, acquisition, professionals just about as many as I do in the Marine Corps. So the benefit is right now in this position that I have is when you look at PEO, combat support and combat service support, the Army PEO up in Michigan, and our portfolio at Logistics Combat Element Systems, with the exception of medical systems and ammunition in my portfolio at LCES, and with the exception of watercraft that they have up there, everything else that we have within the two portfolios perfectly align. So we do extensive work with them. And then those personal relationships that I have with them as well, are...
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be a professional and know your trade and whatnot, but it takes it to a whole nother level when you maintain all these relationships that are critical to sometimes just getting access to the meeting, getting access to the information and being part of the team. Kind of drives me down another path. I know you've been involved in something we call home on home, done a couple of those efforts with the Army. Can you tell us a little bit about the home on home and what's it about and what some of the takeaways might be from conducting those?
Sure. We started this a couple years ago with Mr. Tim Gadet.
Okay.
When he was the PEO up there. And so what we did it, I think in person the first time and then virtual. And then, and this year we're going to do it also again in person. But the big takeaway is, and you're going to love this, Manny, it's first part is about getting messaging down.
Right.
And we want to get the messaging down between the two services and a lot of our common initiatives, as well as those programs where from external stakeholders, we could look like that there should be convergence on that, and we can, come up with a narrative of, well, this is why the Army's doing this and this is why the Marine Corps is doing this. And so just so we understand each other, first of all, and then when we can collaborate, much like we talked about with the ultralight tactical vehicle that we're collaborating with SOCOM, or the joint light tactical vehicle and other initiatives with the Army, et cetera, it just gives that forum where we can say, okay, you're coming up with this new technology, you're getting ready to come out with let's say the Common Tactical Truck is a platform that the Army is working on that could replace kind of the heavier tactical wheeled vehicles. We're monitoring that. We're super excited about it. We don't have any funding for it, but we're super excited about it. Medium tactical truck, the Army's super excited about it. They're just kind of watching though. But we do that. And so what we do is we try to see where's there collaboration opportunities and where there's opportunities where, okay, we have this and you're doing this and we're doing this and why, and that's okay. And then so also helps us as we start to, get into testimony season and other things.
Yeah, I mean, you just went down the road where I was going to say. I mean, I'm sure it's no surprise to you, but the ability for us to showcase the fact that we're sharing, collaborating is a win-win for us on Capitol Hill.
Oh yeah.
Congress wants to, and they get briefed by the Marine Corps, they get briefed by the Army. Sometimes they get briefed on the same capability and two different paths, and then we get kind of we get caught in the crosshairs of, wait, aren't they doing this? Aren't you doing that? So I think what you're doing by conducting these home-on-homes, you're taking some of that surprise off the table.
Yes.
And ensuring that, we're playing on the same level field. And again, I mean, at the end of the day, we may not have the same mission profile that the Army does.
Yeah.
But we might be able to collaborate and capitalize on some of the same investments.
You're spot on that. And so that was a hard lesson that I learned. I've got a lot of scars on that as a captain and major at PM Infantry Combat Equipment back in 2005 to 2008 in the dark days of body armor. And that's what I was working on. That was my first program. Project.
Hasn't gone away by
No, I know that. But they would do that. It's, hey, they're doing this, you're doing that. But that was the lesson I learned is you always sync with the Army or whatever service. That was my big takeaway. So
we could actually make a whole show of JLTV as well, too, because they suffered for years from, the Army, us. We suffered for years for not being able to come to the table and say, okay, let's develop a joint path forward, and I think we've seen the success of that. So, do you have? You said you have an upcoming home on home.
We do. So we're going to combine.
Focus on vehicles, or
no? We focus across the portfolio. So all 5 PM. Well, no, I will say all 4 PMs. Okay. They don't do ammunition there, but that's a different PEO for the Army up in New Jersey. But our 4 PMs, yes, that's what we we go across the gamut, and then the PMs kind of break it down a little bit, so it's more of a high level, strategic exec. Since you have the PEO there and myself, and so that's kind of what we do on that.
It should be exciting. Looking forward to that. Maybe we might have to have somebody from your portfolio back on to talk to us about that.
Absolutely, and you all are welcome to always attend if you want to.
I'm looking forward to it. Let me shift gears on you a little bit. Your relationship to the fleet.
Yeah.
What role do they play in your day-to-day life, and how involved are you with the fleet?
So that's a two-part question.
Okay.
First is what role does the FMF have, within our shaping our programs? And I would say, they're our ultimate customer. So, we do have various touch points, whether it be, myself going out and engaging with the MEFs or the subordinate commands, whether it be going with the commander as we've had in the past, or going out with specific engagements with our PMs, it's invaluable, both if you're meeting with a division or MLG or wing commander. But, even when you peel beneath that, that's where you start seeing, and when you, not only myself, but when you start getting the team leads and the PMs and others down at the deck plate level, that just shapes so much, because we learn so much from them, and they're not afraid, which is awesome, to tell us what's working well, and more importantly, what's not and why. And so those are points that we can really take, and we can dive into.
We can have great vision, great ideas, and great engineers, but where the pointy end of the spear is, if it's not employed the way we envision, it's not doing anybody any good.
You're absolutely right. So we need that feedback loop, et cetera. And so I think the second part or follow-on question is, what is my interaction with the fleet? Again, it's dynamic. So what I would say is we do specific at times engagements where we go out and we interact with the fleet, et cetera, and do those type of things. Or other times, working with my stakeholders or our stakeholders here within Quantico, whether it be CDD or PP&O, et cetera, but keeping that drumbeat, keeping those communication lines open, et cetera. That's really, I think, the value of that.
Let's talk about industry a little bit.
Of course,
because obviously all the wonderful things that we do, we can't do without industry being able to ultimately produce a product for us. What's your engagement like with industry? Is that something you do on a regular basis?
It is. At times we have specific industry engagements, whether they be, I think we were down at Norfolk with the Tactical Wheeled Vehicle Conference, or Modern Day Marine, et cetera. And then we have, smaller ones, et cetera, or go out to the industry sites, again, maintaining those lines of communications.
Right.
And then really with industry, understanding a lot of their challenges, particularly in today's environment. Everybody knows about inflation. You go to the gas station, you get a quart of milk.
See it every day.
You see it every day. Yeah. Well, we're seeing that, oftentimes multiplied, not only with your large contractors. So you name your whatever large Acme Incorporated company, very large, but they don't make everything in-house. They've got second and third, tiered sub-suppliers underneath. A lot of mom and pop operations.
Right.
And in industry, many times right now, it's just being crushed by, we've got firm fixed price contracts in place, let's say. Sometimes maybe we don't have economic price, clauses in there. And so it's quite challenging, I think, for both the government and industry, and we're trying to work through those challenges. And then also, just like anything, supply chain is an issue, whether it be microchips or et cetera. And so those are all issues. And then second and third order effects to that could be quality, in whatever product that we're fielding and the Marines are using. And then, there's a quality defect. And then, you start doing a root cause analysis of why did this occur? Well, they had to change suppliers because of X, Y, Z. And it's complicated. So you have to maintain the communications. It's not a us versus them. It's a team effort. And whether it be the fleet, whether it be, industry, or they're a stakeholder and they're a partner. So
I'd venture to say that the last 2 years have been rather challenging. And again, we're challenged all the time to ensure we stay, cost, schedule, and performance. But it really is a different dynamic when you start talking about not just something that affects a vendor, but something that's affecting the world as a whole and the impacts that it ultimately has on some of our programs. So it's got to be challenging from your perspective to try and maintain the schedule, the cost, and the performance of these capabilities. So
it absolutely is. And I would say, you know, in addition to the traditional triangle, the cost, schedule, performance triangle, another piece that's, you know, it's almost like a Venn diagram, I would say, is risk. You know, managing risk within each one of those elements is just amplified right now with, you know, the external factors with the global economy and COVID and supply chain, et cetera. So,
well, listen, it's been a great conversation. You know, we touched on the extreme diverse programs that you have. So it's got to be fun. It's got to be interesting to bounce around. But I want to focus on your workforce a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you maybe touch on some of the accomplishments your teams have had over the last year or so, and some of the things you're looking forward to in the year or two ahead?
Sure. So what I would say within this past year, we achieved initial operational capability with the Littoral Explosive Neutralization System, or LEON. And that was out at 7th ES Engineer Support Battalion. Within the PM for supply and maintenance systems, what we did is we transitioned the Advanced Manufacturing Operations Center, AMOC cell.
Yeah. Done some great work with
it. Fantastic capability. But what we did is we worked with the staff here and we transferred them down to PM supply and maintenance systems. So now we have a team that does advanced manufacturing, and so you've got the AMOC cell coordinated with 2 programs of record, both the Expeditionary fabrication system and the tactical fabrication system, which goes right into.
And you said, I'm sorry, you said advanced, you mean additive manufacturing?
Additive manufacturing.
Yeah. I get that all.
Additive manufacturing, but I think the umbrella is advanced manufacturing.
Oh, gotcha.
And then that's a piece to it. I'm learning too. There's so many. I mean.
I used to just call it 3D printing, but it's not 3D printing.
Yeah, there's subtractive. It's complicated, but so there's that. I would say within the PM ammunition portfolio, supporting all the presidential drawdowns for Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So I think law rockets, javelin missiles, artillery, etc. PM for light tactical vehicles. Their big takeaway this year is they just fielded the 3,000th JLTV. Okay. So
Congratulations on that.
That was big. So our authorized allowance right now is 12,500. So we're making steady progress right there. And then finally, within the PM for medium and heavy tactical vehicles, what I would say is probably coming up with or executing the conversion of MTVRs to HIMARS resupply vehicles and HIMARS resupply trailers. And some of the work they did there with converting
another high-demand capability.
Absolutely, converting 35 of those for 10th Marines. Yeah. And so this year, just looking forward to continuing leading an extraordinary team of Marine sailors, men and women who are performing an incredible mission and supporting our Marines and sailors in the Fleet Marine Force.
That's outstanding. I do want to touch on something else. I mean, this COVID environment kind of changed things. A lot more telework and things of that sort, but your team actually took on a different initiative. You took on the initiative of setting up a distributed workforce model. Some folks call it a Google-like facility. But can you touch on that a little bit and tell us how it's going?
Sure. I'm glad you asked me that, Manny. Okay. So it was a commander-directed pilot program. Okay. And so what we were tasked with is, executing and really learning lessons from operating in that hybrid distributed workplace. What I would say is we're lucky or fortunate enough to have a facility purpose built for that. And there's it does not look like any government facility I've ever been in. It doesn't look like any specifically a Marine Corps facility I've ever been in. But it has a reduced facility footprint. So 176, it has seats for 176 out of our roughly 300 plus personnel here at Quantico.
Right.
And it became operational in the January, February timeframe of this year. And say for the most part, I would say the workforce has been receptive to not only the workplace, but being able to, operate in this hybrid environment. Now, just like anything, we're optimizing, we're still learning, we're making tweaks. Right. We recently came out with a survey. And actually, we just got those survey results back. And it's the gamut. I mean, there's hey, this is great, this is not great, these are things we need to challenge, work on. And so that's why I said it's still a work in progress. We're still learning, we're still optimizing it, but it blows me away with the resiliency of the workforce, the flexibility and professionalism of them, because over 2 years ago when we went into 100%, you're working from home.
Right.
I mean, that was a significant cultural shift.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we make this significant cultural shift to go back to this. And so, throughout this entire time, they've met or even exceeded, our mission, done exceptionally well. I couldn't be prouder of them.
I know it's an awesome facility. I've seen photos, and several of my team have been over there, and they have glowing comments about it. So I look forward to getting over there. I haven't been over there yet, but it's on my schedule.
You have to come for Margarita Monday.
There you go. Well, that seals the deal right there. Listen, Colonel Gutierrez, this has been a great conversation. I think you got a phenomenal team over there, a wealth of capabilities that you all are putting out the door. So I really appreciate you taking the time, taking a few minutes to talk to us here. But before we let you go, there's something here we'd like to do at the show. That's our lightning round. You ready for some really tough questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Bring it on. What's your favorite duty station?
Michigan.
Michigan. Wow, that's interesting. Not too many Marines are going to say Michigan.
And I've been stationed in Monterey, California.
Have you really?
Yeah, Michigan.
That's awesome. What's a TV show, book, movie, or a podcast you'd recommend?
Okay, so I thought about this. There's a lot of them, but I would say Boyd, the fighter pilot that changed warfare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about Colonel John Boyd.
Yeah.
Fascinating book.
Awesome. I know my producer's over there taking notes. She makes me read everything that people recommend on this show. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would John Gutierrez be doing?
I'd be fly fishing right now in Western Michigan.
Well, I don't know how much money you make doing that, but having done a little fly fishing in Alaska, I'd love to be out there with you. And this is the one that gets a lot of people. If you had any superpower, what would it be?
Time travel.
Time travel.
Yeah.
Get ahead of the game if you jump on out there. Well, listen, I want to wish you continued success in all the endeavors that you're doing. Wish your team all the best. And again, thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, this concludes another episode of Equipping the Corps. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. If so, please take a couple minutes, leave us a review, subscribe, tell your friends about us. Until next time, Manny Pacheco signing off.